Futility. In the poem, Futility, Owen elegizes an unnamed soldier who is lying dead in the snow. Through this poem, the poet conveys a strong sense of grief and sadness through the contrasting imageries between the peacefulness of the first stanza and the grief and anger of the second. As the fallen soldier will never be able to come back to life, the speaker reassesses their life's value and highlights the pointlessness of war through the act of mourning. In a sad, wistful tone over two stanzas of mostly false rhymes, the poet reflects on the seeming futility of life and death. The poem starts with the line, "Move him into the sun." The him here refers to a dead soldier whom the speaker and possibly his companions gather around in the snow. The third-person pronoun, him, reveals the anonymity of the soldier's death, suggesting how the people who fought on the war front are often forgotten. With the action of moving the fallen soldier in the warmth of the life-giving sun, the speaker is in an attempt to keep the body warm and sunlit to preserve its dignity. The long pause from the use of a dash, the end of the first line, interrupts his speech and emphasizes the speaker's deep sadness. His words are broken by this pause and add a great deal of emotion to his tone. We get the sense that the man's death has deeply upset him. It also implies that he realizes this act is to be hopeless and futile, but he commands it to be done as it is a desperate, last act to bring his friend back to life. The sense of soft and soothing feeling is conveyed through words, gently, and touch, in the following line, "Gently its touch awoke him once." The speaker here reflects on how the sun once awoke the dead man and how he hopes that it can do the same again now. The phrase, "gently its touch," reminds us of the peace and joys of life that are now unknown to the soldiers. Owen then illustrates a scene of the soldier at home during the better days where the fields are not yet been sown. We can also infer that his former occupation was a farmer or farm-related worker. Ironically, the reference to "fields half sown" is relevant to the young man's own life, prematurely cut short. As a farmer, he was associated with growth and vitality; as a soldier, he is now associated with death. As a farmer, he tended the earth. Now, as a corpse, he will soon be part of the earth. The verbal noun, whispering, draws a contrast with the constant bombing and shelling the soldiers were exposed to at close range. Moreover, this recollection of the soldier's past humanizes him, informing readers of a time when he didn't have to be a soldier and risk his life each day. It emphasizes the normality that we take for granted. Yet, this is what was lost and destroyed by the outbreak of war. Owen continues on the description of the symbol of the sun in the line, "Always it woke him," which further highlights the sun's power and effectiveness at facilitating life. The speaker explains that the sun, always, woke him, even in France, where the soldiers are exposed to terrible conditions, as France is one of the battlefields, showing that the sun was just as effective away from the dead soldier's home as it was while he was home. The line, "until this morning and this snow," is the stopping point to the sun's power, however, as it is now unable to rouse the soldier. The snow connotes coldness and isolation, which are contrasted with the earlier warmth provided by the sun. Interestingly, the speaker doesn't share the immediate cause of the soldier's death, that is, what war-related injury afflicted the soldier. Instead, the simple images of the morning and snow mark the end of the soldier's life, and the poem maintains a relatively calm and respectful tone without relaying graphic imagery. While the line marks the threshold after which the sun is powerless to help the dead soldier, the speaker still maintains some hope in the following two lines, "If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know." The speaker refers to the kind old sun, which deifies the sun as he gives it godlike power and presents the sun as a benevolent god that can be pleaded with or can intervene. This reminds the reader of the futility of hope and religious belief that God will stop the killing and death of human casualties. The soldier may be dead, but this first stanza ends with a hopeful tone, asserting, despite the speaker's better judgment, that the sun is perhaps powerful enough to bring the soldier back to life. The enjambment between these two lines creates a feeling of suspense, capturing this hopeful uncertainty. With the perfect rhyme between snow and no, the poem suggests a sense of completeness, and the half rhyme, now, in between the two lines disrupt the feeling as it breaks the pattern. This gives a sense of discomfort and implies the fact that the soldier will not wake up again. As Owen describes the sun's power to nourish life in the first stanza, in the second stanza, he then doubts life's purpose and refers to the world's dependence upon and history with the sun. The speaker asks the reader to imagine how the sun wakes the seeds, referring to its potential to provide plants with the energy they need to grow. This phrase personifies seeds as being capable of waking up and additionally uses waking as a metaphor for coming to life. In a mythological allusion, the speaker also recalls how the sun woke once the clays of a cold star. Intriguingly, the idea that human beings originally came from clay is shared by a host of mythologies around the world, including those belonging to ancient Egypt, Babylon, the Inca, and later, Christianity, in the creation story of the Book of Genesis, as well as many others. The poem thus references a global mythic tradition of human beings being born or molded from clay, suggesting a power of creativity that is massive in scope. Following these mythologies, the poem treats the sun as responsible for warming that clay and thus creating life. The phrase, cold star, may seem odd at first, since stars, as far as we know, are unable to support life and don't contain clay. Here, the poem metaphorically compares the earliest days of Earth to a lightless star that is cold, for not having yet come into contact with sunlight. These lines also resonate with the end of the first stanza. If the sun were responsible for giving humans life at the dawn of creation, then surely it is powerful enough to help them rise again in spite of death. In the line, our limbs, so dear achieved, our sides, these pauses represent the speaker's increasing uncertainty. In the first stanza, the speaker seems confident in the sun's ability to potentially revive the dead. However, as the poem progresses, that hope gets replaced with doubt in life's purpose. When the speaker asks the above question, the speaker expresses anger or incredulity at the impossibility of bringing the dead back to life. These pauses in lines capture that feeling. It's almost as if the speaker stutters, having trouble even getting the point across. The speaker may seem confident that life is futile by the end of the poem, but this instance of caesura captures the difficulty with which such confidence is won. It depicts the speaker thinking and feeling in real time. The structure of the poem represents that of an altered or butchered sonnet, as it is a 14-line poem. Instead of the volta following the octave, it occurs after line 7. The rhyme scheme is reminiscent of a sonnet too, but it breaks down into a repetitive flat rhyme in the last 3 lines of both stanzas. The poem is split into 2 stanzas rather than the whole traditional form used for a sonnet. Therefore, this decimation to the sonnet form helps to convey how there is a lack of tenderness and compassion in the world because of the Great War. It helps to emphasize the futility of war as it destroys love, hope and joy. The poet form of the poem is simple. It has only 2 stanzas of 7 lines each. Notice the odd rhyme scheme. We think that we should see a pattern of ABABCCC, but the rhymes are not exact. Sun and sown are not perfect rhymes, nor are once and France or seeds and sides or star and stir. The words look similar and can even sound similar, but they do not truly rhyme. Only snow and no and tall and all actually do, and they, too, are each matched with a false rhyme, now and toil. The faulty rhyme scheme matches the poem's subject matter. The man's death seems to have thrown the natural order off kilter, and the rhymes have shifted off kilter as well. The title of this poem, Futility, ultimately comes from a Latin word meaning easily broken or worthless. This title, therefore, essentially reflects the poet's condemning attitude towards horror and the vanity of war. The body of the young soldier the poem describes has indeed been easily broken by war, but that is not necessarily to say that his life was worthless. In fact, the very existence of the poem implies just the opposite. As human sacrifices in war are often seen as futile, Owen is highlighting the significance of human life and how it is often overlooked by the glorification of warfare. In all, futility refers to the pointless and empty hope found not only for this fatally wounded soldier, but also for a world where war is glorified, where people at home complacently go about their days in blissful ignorance, and brave soldiers give their lives, as Owen sees it, for a lie.